Hey, Margie here. Are you ready to learn what you can do to help improve the health of future generations? Well, if so, you are in the right place because today we're going to talk about what we can do to really create good, healthy habits for our children, our grandchildren. And I'm so excited about our special guest because she's someone who I really adore and admire. And that's Dr. Madiha Saeed. And she's also known as Holistic Mom MD on social media. She's a practicing board certified family physician, a health influencer, international speaker, and the author of several books, including The Holistic RX, Your Guide to Healing Chronic Inflammation and Disease. And by the end of the year, she's going to have two more books, The Holistic RX for Kids, Parenting Healthy Brains and Bodies in a Changing World, and Adam's Healing Adventures, The Power of Rainbow Foods. Her current online platforms reach millions of people. Dr. Saeed is the president of the International Institute of Islamic Medicine. She's the director of education for Documenting Hope and KnoWEwell, and she sits on multiple medical advisory boards. Dr. Saeed and her children speak internationally, and her children host the Holistic Kids Show podcast, interviewing the biggest names in functional, holistic, and integrative medicine with the goal of helping kids empower and educate other kids. And in today's talk, we really go into what we can do to really change the health of our children, grandchildren, and the future generation, because so often we do things that are well meaning, but do just the opposite. So this talk is full of great information. So stay tuned. Welcome, Dr. Saeed. I'm so excited to be here with you today, again on the podcast. But this is such an important topic about kids because this is our future. This is, and I think so many of us as moms, as or parents, as grandparents, we don't realize that we have such an impact on our children's health. And so thank you so much for being here. So why don't we just start with, just maybe give us the landscape of why you did this work, and we'll talk about your new book, but just tell us about what's going on with kids today.
Oh my gosh, kids are getting sicker and sicker. Adults are getting sicker and sicker. And not even just their brains and bodies, but the environment even is getting sicker. I'm like, everything around us, we're just not doing so hot. But again, just like everybody else, I was stuck on that hamster wheel, right? Because I was just trying to keep myself above water, just trying to continue. Because I know at this time when I really came to this realization was my husband was working 80-hour work weeks. I was working 80-hour work weeks as a family physician. And I found that our, continuing on this hamster wheel was just easier to sort of ignore what's going on in the world around us. But not until one day that I walked into the daycare provider, almost suffocating my child to death. And that is when, yes, and I know at that day I picked him up and I ran out. And at that day, I swore to God that I promise I'm going to take care of these children the best that I know how, because God saved my child that day. But then I had to take a step back and say, wait, how am I supposed to take care of these kids the best that I know how if I myself, as a family physician, is completely falling apart? And so I was diagnosed with lupus and Hashimoto's and digestive issues and pain and chronic fatigue and acne and eczema and seborrheic dermatitis and all of these other chronic health conditions. But I noticed that we were never taught why and what I could do to actually stop these in its tracks, stop the diseases in its tracks, so I can take care of my kids. Because unfortunately, this is not what most doctors are taught. We're just taught here's a problem, here's a pill or a procedure, or maybe a little bit of advice here just to try to alleviate some of the symptoms. But it was really never really getting to the underlying root cause. And already studying parenting, and now I was making it my life's mission to try to figure out how I can lower my own inflammation, improve my own health. When I discovered integrative holistic medicine, combining both those worlds blew my mind. And it was so amazing because now you're recognizing that actually you can use science to help your child's brain and body function optimally, where they are able to look within, figure out their own imbalances before it really becomes a problem, and correct it on their own without you having to bribe them. And that is in this new book, and I put it all in this new book called The Holistic RX for Kids, Parenting Healthy Brains and Bodies in a Changing World. Really all about how holistic parenting is able to put your child's body back into balance, alter their, genes in their favor, optimize functions of their brains and their organs and tissues and DNA and even mitochondria. Just really empowering and educating your children, your grandchildren to be more mindful of their emotions, their body, their soul, and then again, increasing resilience by really being mindful on all these different levels of perception all at once. And that is what I wanted to really put in this book, because unfortunately, today's children's brains and bodies have been hijacked.
Wow, this is unbelievable. I'm sure everyone's listening. Tell us more. Can you tell us, give us maybe some highlights that we can?
Yes, because right now, absolutely, because our children's imbalanced lives, right? And we think that as grandparents or as parents, giving the kids artificial junk food is loving them. But we're not recognizing that those issues, when we're doing that, can actually create more issues in the child. And more
I love that you're saying that, because it always drives me crazy when someone means so well and they're being so loving and they're giving the biggest piece of chocolate cake or whatever it is, and they're, it's meant out of love. This is because, and as you say, it's doing so many negative things to the body. So continue.
Absolutely. No, it does, because there's two main pieces of decision making. And there is, our prefrontal cortex and our amygdalas. Our prefrontal cortex is responsible for, that's the more developed part of the brain, responsible for rational decision making, examines the pros versus the cons. It really helps your child, think through their actions after taking a look at the whole picture, while the amygdala, which is a reactive part of the brain, is responsible for the primitive, impulsive, fight and flight type of decision making skills. And to make a thought out rational decision in the form of healthy habits, we need to really have both of these working in unison, which play a really large role in influencing, how the parts of the brain interact with each other and affecting our children's decision making. And so, but unfortunately, this is the problem. Giving that piece of chocolate cake, or, our kids are eating more and more junk food than ever before. Limited diet variety, we have the lack of sleep, the lack of nature, the lack of exercise and play, the negative social environment, the increased exposures to toxins inside and outside the home can all then contribute to an imbalanced child and an inflammation. And actually, studies have shown that inflammation can actually hijack your child's brains. And studies have shown that inflammation is found to decrease the strength between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. That leads to a heightened response when presented with something that could be threatening, and leading to also impaired cognitive function, also brain aging, and even, us versus them mentality, more anger, irritability, more violence. Basically, this child is unable to use the whole brain to make a logical decision. And researchers actually at Harvard and Columbia, they saw that there was a group of 4,000, they studied a group of 4,000 children, and researchers determined that those children with behavioral problems actually had more risk of developing these chronic conditions like heart disease, diabetes, and obesity as adults, because when they checked their blood, those kids that had emotional and behavioral issues at the age of 8, they checked their blood at the age of 10, and they had higher levels of two proteins called HSCRP, high sensitivity C-reactive protein, and interleukin-6, which is a pro-inflammatory cytokine that is produced in response to infections, tissue injury, and was associated with inflammation in adulthood. Even prenatally, this can start to even affect them. So all putting a child out of balance, their lifestyles out of balance, is actually leading them to make, bad decisions that leads to them to have unhealthy brain, body, and behavior. So
Wow. It's
there's
unbelievable. This modern world, just living in the modern world, but there's things we can do. So that's what,
so much we
so
can do.
tell everybody what they can
Yes,
do.
because we are mind, body, soul. Our children, our grandchildren are mind, body, soul. So what I call it is like a holistic parenting. And holistic parenting can then nurture a child's mind, body, soul from the inside, in which they can give them where they can give them the skills that they need for emotional, intelligence, enduring deep friendships, making correct decisions, managing stress, and being able to remain resilient all throughout child, no matter what life throws at you. So these are really important pieces, even to take along through adulthood, right? Because holistic parenting helps to really raise a mindful child. And mindfulness, remember, we know, allows us to see our internal and external environment clearly, showing us how we can best respond to and be fully aware at multiple different levels of perception all at once. It's all about educating and empowering your child to be mindful of their own bodies, minds, emotions, social lives, environment, and then learning how to keep it in balance. So I think us as grandparents and parents, just like what we're doing with our own selves, with our health, like if we know we all know, especially if we've been on this journey for a while, we know when we're starting to sway one way or the other, right? And so that is the kind of skills that we want to try to educate. If we can do this at this age, why can't children learn this? Right? All this intuitiveness where they can see what's going on in their body, or being mindful of their own emotions and physical health and emotional health and brain health all at once, and try to fix it, see where their body's going. And I've seen this work, and it's so powerful because in the last 13 years since I've been doing this, my oldest is 13. I live in a multi-generational household. My in-laws live with me and my children. So there's 3 generations here in this house. And I'm so very blessed because it's a huge blessing to do that. And so you can see the way that my mother-in-law has parented her children versus I. And what I recognize is very similar. Besides, for now, we need to use more of this mindfulness, bring the mindfulness into this. And once I started educating my children about mindfulness and really looking within, it's so much fun to walk into your 10-year-old meditating on their own to keep their nervous system back into balance, or to have your 7-year-old, when I come downstairs and I saw that he was eating sauerkraut for breakfast. And when I asked him why, he said, "Oh, because I woke up feeling a little agitated. And I think it was because of the organic sugar that I had at Nana's house that Nana gave me. And so I woke up a little agitated. So that was probably what it is. I just eating sauerkraut for breakfast because to help my gut bugs. So it helped my gut bugs, and then I'll feel happier." And I
Well,
was
wait a
like,
minute.
this
Your
is a
children,
7-year-old.
but your children also have a podcast, and they hear that, and they are surrounded by healthy, by health practitioners on a regular basis. But for the
Yes.
average person, so you're saying if we can educate, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. If we can educate our children on teaching them different habits for mindfulness, as well as certain food that can help them if they're feeling tense. Maybe it was the sugar, just sort of bring this into the conversation.
Living a more mindful life, because I think that's gone away from us. Now where this generation is living in a world where we're stuck on our gadgets and we're not connecting with people. We don't have family dinners together. It's very limited. People are go, 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 go type of lifestyle. And now you add in devices that really make people disconnected to each other. And then when you add devices, you're not really concentrating on how you're really feeling, because then you're trying to, there's really no time to slow down and even reflect anymore. So this is where I think that, forming these healthy habits that we're going to talk about, along with, showing that your kids that these symptoms that you're feeling, right? We have to listen to them. They're not bad symptoms. They're not good symptoms. They're just symptoms. And these symptoms is basically your body talking to us. And it can be any little itty bitty symptom, to the point where how our digestion is, to if we feel agitated, to even the ear infection. So any of these symptoms is your body talking to you, and we have to teach our kids to how can they listen to their body. And
Oh,
then the things that listen to their body. It's so powerful.
I love that because so often you're like, forget about it, or that's no big deal, or you just sort of, you don't want to make a big deal about something. So that's
Yeah.
very interesting to just teach them to listen to the body. And what would
And
you
their
say?
bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And what happens is that, I wish we were just one and done in the bedroom, but that's not the case, right? So these children are born into this world with with a blank canvas with lots of different cells and very limited connections. But the human brain is an amazing organ made out of like 100 billion brain cells and over 50 trillion synapses. And brain development is really rapid in the womb and continues at an accelerated rate in the first 2 to 3 years of life and continues this up for the next 20 years. And 90% of our growth in the brain occurs in the first 5 years, where millions of these brain connections are being formed, unformed, and reformed. And so, depending on our lifestyle, we can then solidify good connections in the brain, or if we have an imbalanced lifestyle, bad connections in the brain that don't serve us. And so these are the kinds of things, because junk food right now, just like we were talking about, we think that we're giving kids junk food, candy. Like I remember, this is just me growing up. I remember that anytime I would go to my grandma's house, she would give me candy and money, basically, but mostly just candy. But now science has proven that this junk food actually shapes an adolescent's brain in ways that they impair its ability to think, learn, remember, perform, or lower. And they actually even perform lower on brain tests and even impulsive behaviors, and increases risk of teenage depression, because these teenagers even, their brains get more pleasure than adult brains from doing rewarding behaviors, as adolescents actually have more dopamine receptors, and adolescent brains can be more influenced by the environment. They've actually, what's really cool is that, and this can start really, really young, right? They actually did a study where the gut microbiome is so important, because the infant gut microbiome undergoes dynamic changes in the first 36, months of life. And so during the first 3 years of life, the development of the microbiome is influenced by the neonatal and maternal exposures, diet, lifestyle, and our child's environment, that it plays a major role in shifting the gut microbiota early in life. And the diversity is key. So having that love around you, giving you, if we're constantly, I think we're giving mostly the junk food that we're giving is for kids, that actually destroys the kids' gut microbiome. And determining on what kind of microbes are in the child's gut really determines how the child will live. There's just, even for infants, this is just crazy. Just a couple of months ago, there was a study that came out in the gut microbiome that researchers at the University of Alberta, they found that they researched actually more than 400 infants, and they found that boys with a gut bacterial composition that was high in a certain bacteria called Bacteroides at 1 year of age were found to actually have more advanced cognition and language skills 1 year later.
Wow. So what's your suggestion then? What's your tip for everybody listening? So, okay. So now we're going to stop giving the junk food. What can we substitute then? So what would you suggest?
So in my house, it is all about educating and empowering and replacing. So replacing with instead of the junk food. So let's say your grandson or your child is coming, they really want to keep them happy. So what I've done in my mother and my mom's house is I replaced it with better things that I have provided. So then get healthier options there, but you can still get for example, if the kids love muffins, if you love to bake, I use almond flour and avocado oil and honey and pasteurized eggs and teaspoon of baking soda, teaspoon of salt, and that's it. And that's the base of a cake. And then I'll throw blueberries and I'll make blueberry muffins. I'll put some pumpkin in there and make pumpkin spice muffins. I'll put cashews in there, make cashew cake, whatever it needs to be, you can turn it into. So because that's the base recipe. And they're your child. So when you come to, grandma's house or your house and the house is filled with, how like that smell of cookies and cakes and pastries. Oh, I remember that in my own grandma's house. And that's what we try to do again with our own grandchildren. And, but you want to then do that with like healthier options, because that will then really influence and optimize the children's, because again, this will help to allow this gut microbiome to thrive, promoting learning, memory, good behavior, and good mood. So if we truly, truly love our grandkids, we got to start feeding them real foods, like the rainbow kinds of foods, and have like a tray of all these fruits and vegetables. But if your grandkids aren't there yet, even just finding these healthier alternatives. There's cassava flour chips. There's chocolate with just coconut sugar in it, if that's what they want. There's cookies made with almond flour, or actually now they even have delicious like crackers made with watermelon seed flour that are so delicious, and graham crackers. So there's so many different alternatives. So still keep doing what you're doing, but just replace it with healthier options. And that's what I love. And I know that's what I've done at my mom's house. Whenever the kids go over there, it's a little different stuff than they get over here. So that still feels like a treat, but it's all nutrient dense ingredients instead of the artificial fake that's really destroying the gut microbiome, destroying their hormone balance and leading to inflammation.
Wow, it's amazing that these little things, that's not little, but just by changing the food that we're giving our kids, we can affect their health so much.
Yes, and the decisions that they're making,
Yeah,
right? Because that's all what we really want them to do.
wow.
Along with, our children are growing in a world of chronic stress. So instead
Is there a
of,
tip for that? Yeah.
not have kids, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. But our children, are living in a world of chronic stress. But the main tip that I have for that one is, I think, play. I don't think our kids play enough. They are now, they're playing like, yes, on like video games, but just unstructured, without screenplay. Can also improve their immune system, actually lower the blood pressure, increase BDNF, which can enhance the development, of dopamine and other things in the children's brains. The other thing that we can do is take them out in nature, because nature heals our children's brains and bodies from the inside out, and ours, right? Spending time in nature can actually de-stress us and lower inflammation, boost the immune system, restores our brain connections, higher prefrontal cortex activation, and improves our overall health, gives us a sense of calm, and really helps us to bond and recognize that there's something a lot bigger than just ourselves. I think that's we're sometimes so self-consumed in our kids and and us, that can be so self-consumed in social media, thinking like, oh, this is just us. But there's an entire world out there, that really helps us to give us calm and improves cognition and enhances positive emotions.
Wow.
And then
So
really mindfulness. Yeah, mindfulness and making sure that you're sleeping, you're social to people that you hang out with. And then our kids are not sleeping. So really, role modeling that behavior yourself, because I think the kids are not going to do if we're not doing it, they're not going to do it. And then love. I think this is the best thing about I'm very honored to be in a multi-generational household where, I am so blessed because these kids have unconditional love all day long. And the love that they get from grandparents is like no other, they cannot get any other love like that. You can't even buy love like that, because that unconditional love, that loving can actually build connections. It actually releases oxytocin and decreases the stress response symptoms. So continue to build that love that you're giving the kids, and making sure they're sleeping properly, finding different routines that work for them on their schedule, making sure that they're getting their recommended hours of sleep, and then positivity, right? This is my one thing me and you are totally in sync with. But science has now proven that optimism and happiness and gratitude actually strengthen the connections between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, really improving the overall health and well-being. because, in this world of negativity that our kids are constantly being bombarded with, we can train our subconscious to be more positive. So incorporating words of like gratitude and words of appreciation and encouragement, teaching them forgiveness, helping them find a purpose, can optimize their brain and body connection. So
Wow.
these are like the biggest pieces of the puzzle that can help to really make sure that their children's brains and bodies are working appropriately. So much fun.
Well, I love this. And I'm so happy that you came, because I really think, after we talked, I just wanted to share this with everybody, because we have children, we have grandchildren, and why not know what you can do to really, really make an impact on their lives and, change their future, and as well as, just our future generations. It's so important.
Absolutely.
So when does the book come out? I can't wait to read this.
Oh my gosh. So I got two coming out. One is like the Power of Rainbow Foods here. And then we have is the holistic.
Is there recipes in that book too?
Yeah. So this is like 5 books all in one, which is
wow.
Really cool. The first part talks about what's going on in the world and then what we can do about it. Then we talk about dilemmas. So there's a lot of dilemmas that are going on. For example, addictions, sleeping, bullying, trauma of a child. I mean, these are just circumstances a child is going to deal with in their lives. So how to then really proactively, using science and functional medicine, how are we going to optimize each one of those situations? And then what I do, and then I have another section in here where it really talks about how to, how if a child does get sick, what to do about it. Right?
Oh, great. Is it sort of like your other book where you actually get
like it's so much fun. Yes, because that's you got to have, like, if I'm going to buy a book, I'm going to make sure that it's worthwhile, right? So, and it really talks about how, what you're going to do when a child gets sick, and then recipes, and then even, when you go to your well child checks, like when a long time ago, when the kids used to go to, 2 week, then 2 month, and 4 month, and 6 month, and 9 month well child checks, they would give like a sheet with like the milestones on it. But that really only talked about like parenting, like, the safety, and then, what milestones to look for. But that was really about it, which is an important part of parenting, but then really ignoring the emotional piece of it. And so I actually created well child checks.
Oh, wow.
Things that you can do at every stage that you can do with your grandchild. Because a lot of times, I know in my case, my in-laws, their grandparents are watching the kids when I'm working. So things that you can do while with your grandchildren, with your kids, to optimize their brain and body function at every stage, like every couple months. So I have well child checks, and I have recipes that I do in my crazy house is all in here. So this has literally been a passion project, because can you imagine, Margie, just for a second, that we're actually raising a future generation that is able to look within, guide them along the way with positive mindset, giving them the life skills they need to navigate through our like rapidly changing, crazy world. Where, can you imagine where
I love it. I'm loving
everything would be able to accomplish?
I'm loving everything. I'm only wishing this book existed. I didn't know anything way back when my my kids were that age. I'll have to wait till grandchildren now to use the book. I don't have any yet.
But exactly. You do this with your grandkids. This is a gift that everybody, gift this, especially with the holidays coming up. Yeah. Because every conversation that you have with your grandchild, every hug, everything you do, every food that you put in their body, their stressors, their sleep, their social, their spiritual health, has the power to mold their brains inside and out for the better.
Oh, well, I love this.
So we got to start today.
You feel so powerful,
Yes. It is, because literally every single child can be that drop in the ocean to create a ripple effect to heal the world from the inside out. So we as grandparents and caregivers we have these little beautiful beings in front of us that we can help mold and guide and educate and empower and love and feed, so they can really take on a healthier.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for joining everybody, and really for all this writing. I don't know how you do it. To me, you're a superwoman, but yet a relaxed, happy superwoman. I mean, I don't know. cooking for all these people, and as well as, raising amazing children, as well as having a practice, as well as, so I'll have all the information. What day is this coming out exactly?
November 11th and November 18th is a children's book.
And
So,
everybody can pre-order these though as well.
yes.
Okay,
Yes,
so I'll have the links. And yeah, so exciting. This is going to be a big ripple effect. So
I can't wait. So much hope.
And everybody noticed we're like in the same colors. This was
Yes,
random.
we do this all the time. I think we did this last time
We've
too.
done this before.
Like we are like in sync on the same vibration.
The same positivity. So
Yes.
Anyway, thank you so much. I always my energy is always heightened, and my in terms of the good vibes, I always feel them after
I
we're
know. I
together.
love it. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, thank you so much. It's just been a pleasure. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Dr. Saeed, and now have some new tips that you can use to really help the future generation improve their health. And all the links that Dr. Saeed talked about will be in the show notes, including the link to her new book, The Holistic RX for Kids Parenting Healthy Brains and Bodies in a Changing World. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.